Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page podcast. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. This is episode 14 and today we're going to be discussing craft supplies. Can we resist a bargain? I think the answer is probably no. No, we can't resist a bargain. We are a breed of crafters that have to have craft supplies. We need to collect them, hunt and gather them. It's like a strange instinct from bygone days where we need to bring as much into the home as possible for fear that some terrible cataclysmic disaster is going to befall us and we will need to have all the craft supplies around us. However, that has actually happened and we did need the craft supplies all around us. We were stuck at home and we needed the things around us, and thank goodness we are these people, these resourceful people that have this stuff in abundance apparently. And no matter, I'm just going to use what I've got, we still find the need to want something different or a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And when we use something, when we actually use something up, oh my goodness, that's horrendous. Don't you just feel like, now I need more of that because I've used it. And the whole purpose was to use the thing up. But once it's gone, certainly from my point of view, is I feel, I've run out. But I was actually supposed to be using that up and not having it here again. But as soon as it's gone, I feel like I need to replenish and replace. So, I don't know. I can't explain it, but I know I'm not alone. So I'm not going to apologise for it. It is what it is and it's brilliant. I need the things around me and I use the things I use. There's lots of stuff that I don't use and there's lots of stuff that I get excited when I see it, when I'm out and about bargain hunting and having a little look in these shops that are second-hand shops and people have gifted away the things in the hope that somebody else will make use of them. And of course, we could make use of anything we come across being junk journalers. That's what we are training ourselves to do. Look at things in a different way and repurpose them in our mind. What could this be? What potential does this item have? And when we see something like a rubber stamp from a crafter, fellow crafter has donated a wooden stamp and it's in good condition, oh my, that goes straight in the basket, doesn't it? We don't even think, we don't even look what it is. We just know that it's a good bargain because a wooden stamp to buy new, that's a lot of money. Those things are expensive, especially in the UK. We don't want to be leaving that to sit there. We need to snap that up. That's a good prize. The fact that it's an Easter bunny and is only going to come out once a year is by the by. It's a good quality rubber stamp, hardly been used, if at all. And then, of course, we get the rubber stamp home and we think, well, we'll put it on pride of place. That was an excellent find. That was 25 pence. I know, amazing, 25 pence. These things are like £5 to buy new. So it sits on the shelf, pride of place, its little bunny ears gleaming at you and its little whiskers twitching over there, waiting for that perfect project. And you think, don't worry, bunny, don't worry, your time is coming. And it's in the spring. Spring comes. And it's crazy. There's lots of things to do. And poor bunny got forgotten about. Poor bunny didn't get used for its one-time springtime outing. But it was perfect for the right project. But the right project didn't come about. And he's still unused, sat on my shelf. Oh, so, yes, I don't know. Take note if you want to, but that happens. That can happen. Other people's junk can be your treasure, but it can also be your junk too. So Be discerning what you bring into your craft room. Are you really going to use the seasonal things when you find them? Yes, you probably are if you haven't got very many things. But if you've got an abundance of things already that you know you like, your go-tos, you're probably going to go to your go-tos and just be careful. Just make that decision. Do I really love it, or am I just so excited to find a bargain? And be careful. Is the bargain overpowering the actual practical use of what you have found, and could somebody else genuinely make more use of it? Oh, it's hard. It's a hard one, because you know that connected to other people in the crafting world that may also appreciate it. So if anything, you probably snapping it up you'll be able to pass it on to somebody who could use it in the future. So that's okay, right? Right? But the call to leave the craft room and go and investigate the shops is getting stronger now. And I've tried to resist, because I know when I go, I do come back with quite the haul. And when I'm looking for things, if I go to what we call charity shop, is second hand. And we can have a look for vintage things. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for things that have notable worth. All the little treasures and things that may be lurking and hiding. Little, maybe jewellery, that's a good place to have a little look. Look in that jewellery glass cabinet at the front of the shop where they have the till. They often have a little counter for the jewels and the goodies. Have a look in there, see if there's any treasures to be found for very little money. What I'm also looking for is maps, old vintage maps, old vintage sheet music paper, and old vintage books that are falling apart. Those are gold. Those are brilliant. I'm looking for vintage or old or retro greeting cards that I like with images that are pleasing, postcards, and I would be looking for writing paper sets. All of that sort of thing is intriguing. I'd then start having a look at textiles, fabrics and lace, and often I'm finding more now. You didn't used to always have this, but they are organising things much nicer in much better sections, and you find that there is a little craft section now in charity shops, and you can always go and have a little look. It's only probably in some of the smaller places it would just be one shelf, but you could have a little rummage in a basket. That's always good. I like a rummage. You never know what's at the bottom, and whatever's at the bottom is usually what other people don't want, and it's absolutely perfect for junk journaling. Those are the rogue buttons and the little bits of trim and certain sticker sheets or something that's fallen off, little embellishments and paper flowers. Absolute perfect for what we're looking for. And the things that are fallen down the back or at the side or tucked away, those are the things that the shop assistants don't remember how much they are, and they all look a bit scruffy, so they tend to just bundle it up, and so they would give you the bundle for very little money. So that's a good thing. I'd be looking for old vintage playing card sets, notepad, anything, any nice paper sets, any postage stamps, and sometimes you can find rubber stamps, as I've said. That's really good. Ink pads I wouldn't buy from a charity shop. Those are the things that I wouldn't buy because they've often been left to dry out, or you never know how old they are. But if they're going for absolute song and they are just going to be giving them away, you could maybe try to rehydrate them. If you have a look on the back, and if you can see they're water soluble, then that would you could still get an ink stain out of them and be able to dye some paper with them. So that's a good idea. I would look for old fabric dye kits, buttons and yarn, and then one of the things that I don't often find is vintage lace in a roll. That would be amazing to find. I look for hankies, vintage hankies, anything with an embroidered thread through it, any embroidery of any kind, and old crocheted lace or crochet doilies. I would look for old linens. Now, all of that stuff is now becoming popular and therefore quite pricey. Even in a second-hand store, they now are very acutely aware of the worth of some of the nicer bits. Crochet doily And therefore, that's not really junk. That's then become some sort of precious collectible item, and the price tag reflects it. So therefore, some of these things, they're not junk. So you couldn't really call it something to go in your junk journal unless it was gifted to you from some great aunt's back cupboard, and she just happened to have a whole stash of old linens, and you're being given them because they are junk, and they're then now creating a pile of mess in your craft room. Therefore, they're junk. But some of these things are not junk. They are collectible items with a high price tag. So you could have a look at jumble sales and car boot sales, but I think for anybody in the UK right now, we wouldn't want to be doing that because those are all outdoors. And the best places to go if you're travelling around and you are in the UK, and I'm sure this is the world over as well, is to go to a more expensive city, to go to somewhere where there is money. People have money. So if you're going somewhere, you wouldn't go to a cheaper town, you would go to the city. You would try and aim for somewhere where people actually have money to spend. And if you go there to the Goodwill and the charity shops, there you'll actually find some really good quality things. And it's the same for the clothes as well. Suddenly you see designer clothes being thrifted away. And it's the same with craft supplies. You might find that you can get your hands on some very nice lace, albeit a piece of clothing. So it could be a garment that's got lace on it, which is interesting, more interesting than perhaps if you were to go to a place where it isn't very expensive. But then on the other hand, if you do go to a town where it is not so expensive, you may find that you do get some unbelievable bargains because people don't realise the worth of some of the books and some of the fabrics and some of the jewellery pieces, and therefore they are being sold for absolutely next to nothing. And it is their junk, and they're only too pleased that you're relieving them of it so that they can fill the shelf with other things that are more profitable to them, like children's toys. Maybe the town is very much aimed at parents and children, and so stuff that is considered old-fashioned and, junk or cluttering up the shelves, they're only too pleased to get rid of 15 balls of yarn in a funny colour, and we're only too pleased to have it and turn it into something else. So there's all of these things that you can start looking for. But yeah, the vintage finds are obviously what we have a little keen eye out for. I think I did find 300 envelopes at one point in a great big box, and it was just the envelopes, and they were all the old-fashioned gummed envelopes where you have to moisten it before you can seal it, and they'd started to go a bit warped. They'd got some water damage and they were a bit crinkly. Oh my goodness, wow, what have I found? This is amazing. So I had 300 envelopes. No, I'm still using them now, and she let me have them for so little money. I couldn't believe it. Can't even remember, but it was pence rather than pounds, and that was great. She gave me a great big bundle. Oh, the other thing I'd looked for and seen is old knitting patterns, and we found some from the 60s. That was really fun, and sewing patterns with the sewing pattern paper. Those are a good find, very good find. Lots of uses for the sewing pattern paper, and it's really interesting and lovely texture. And then buttons that are in the old original paper bags. That's great, where it's got that crunchy, nice soft paper bags that were good quality back in the day and have still got some perfect structure but lots of creases and crinkles. If you can find anything like that containing some wonderful buttons or old paper clips or slightly rusty safety pins, those are the things, aren't they? Those are the good things. tools. Maybe you find some nails and washers, and not so much nails, but if they're rusty, then you could start an eco-dyeing process with rusty nails, so that's good. You might find that you want a set of old second-hand saucepans so that you can do your dyeing of botanical dyes if you want to boil up some avocado skins to create a pink dye for paper. Treasury tags, they're a great find if you can see any of those. The treasury tags are where there's a metal bar at either end, and in the middle is a piece of string, and it was often green, the old vintage treasury tags. Those are great. See if you can hunt those down. Envelopes in any size, and money envelopes, sort of coin pocket envelopes, they're great. Silk scarves, I always used to walk past those, but since realising that I can really distress them quite nicely in the washing machine on a hot wash and then the tumble dryer, I have discovered that they become nice and soft and fluffy and look like they're nearly 100 years old, and they really work very well in nice fluffy craft projects to just bring in texture for snippet rolls and clusters and page embellishments. I do have quite a lot of vintage cottons, and some of it snaps, so I wouldn't go binding a book together with it, but I would still be able to use it for the purpose of slow stitching. And old vintage photos of people of that era reminding you of a nostalgic time of your grandparents is much easier than using pictures of your grandparents. So that's, I think, why we like to collect that nostalgic vintage style. Anything from the 1940s is going to be huge. That's worth something. So if you happen to find that, it's worth, putting it into a basket, because you might find that you could sell that on in the future. And swags and swatches of fabric is great. And then anything like paints, old watercolour palettes, that would be great. Those are so useful. And paintbrushes, I would grab a few of those, as long as you've got some to get you started. That's useful. If you can find a vintage dictionary and check out the difference of the papers in the books, you might find that that's interesting as well. Different qualities of paper, different thicknesses, and some might be shiny or smooth, and others might be porous and rough with a texture. Those are all interesting to bring into a collage, different textures of paper, even if they are plain and neutrals. The texture is interesting if you can find something like that. Any embossed paper where there's a ripple or a patterning on it, that's nice to bring in for collage as well. Or it could be a page in a journal. And I love to look for old gardening books, particularly if the pages aren't too modern and shiny. So if you can find anything with an illustration in it and it looks a bit worse for wear, then grab it and see if they'll deduct any money off of it if it's broken, because it's only going to be probably pulled apart anyway. So if it's already starting to fall apart and isn't very, very good, then you're only just doing the whole process a favour by actually putting it a new lease of life, aren't you? Because you're going to then immortalise those pages in another book, and we'll all probably have a good look at it and read what was written about this plant or about this tree, whatever you found, the birds or the butterflies. The natural world is all wonderful part of journaling, because we all connect to that, and that's a fairly good go-to when you're looking for anything like that. And if it's vintage, so much the better, because the quality of the paper is so sought after. So that's certainly where I'm heading. I'm going to go and have a little shop around and see. I'm wanting to find some lace and trim. That's really what I'm after. The other thing to have a hunt about for is old copies of the National Geographic magazine. They have some wonderful pictures in there, and the paper is nice. There's quite a lot you can do with a National Geographic magazine. If you're interested in jelly printing, you can take an image because of the ink that was used in those magazines. So that's worth looking up. Some projects coming up in the new year using a National Geographic magazine, so I will be looking for more of those. And ledger paper is the holy grail, looking for old antique ledger paper. That is not something that comes around often. People are aware that that's quite expensive now, and anything that's 100 years old is then an antique, so it can cost more. But yes, textiles, cottons, trims are all on the radar here, and papers of all different varieties are always being sought after to add to journals to make them more interesting. So if you're thinking of heading out to go and look for a bargain, then those are the sort of things that you could keep an eye out for. They're going to be the sort of things that you want to bring into your journal, and any old receipts or anything like that, you just may find that somebody has put something out there thinking that it might be of interest. I just once remember being in a shop when a button tin was handed in, and I thought, oh, look, a button tin, that's amazing. And I remember hearing the ladies thinking, they said, what's that? Oh, it's full of old buttons. Brilliant. What are we going to do with that? And I thought, oh, they are missing a trick. And I said, oh, I actually like buttons. I'm a artist. Oh, are you? Would you want it? I said, oh, yes, please. Well, how much? Oh, have it. She said, just give us a donation of 50p. 50p for the whole lot. And I've got some, they are quite modern, some of the buttons, but they are really, really good to just nip into a project because there's lots of small ones there and quite nice colours. So I thought that was absolutely perfect. I was placed at the perfect right time, and sometimes that just happens. So when I get the calling to go and have a look, and that I feel like I should be going out to have a little mooch around the shops, I often come back with something really, really fun. And I did find a tin of old vintage postcards, and on them were butterflies. They were all butterflies, and I thought, how have I managed to find this? And it was so little money. It was 75 pence for a big tin of vintage butterflies. Actually, the cards were from America, so that was fun to find things from overseas in England just as much as American. Ladies, you'd love to find things from Europe, and it's funny, isn't it? Because we always want what we haven't got. And we always think the grass is greener on the other side. And, it probably is. Probably is. But it's also not cheaper. I don't know that it would be any less expensive because we do know the worth of our vintage and our antique items. But if you look closely, if you go to some of these places and you're prepared to dig and get to the bottom of the boxes and ask the ladies if they've got an old box of miscellaneous stuff out the back, if you're prepared to do that, then you may find that you'll get results. You'll have to be kind to people. You might even have to bribe them with chocolates. Or just keep being in there as a regular and just, could you give me a ring if you get anything in that is of this nature, and put your name down if anything particular comes in. Depends where you go, but there are places where you may find that you get talking to the shop assistants and they get to know you, and they will put your name down on a little list if you're particularly looking for certain things like sheet music, or if you give them something easy that they can remember, sheet music, or if you get any antique linen, or if you get any crocheted lace, please would you consider giving me a ring? That sort of thing. They'd be only too pleased because they don't want to sit there pricing all this stuff up. If they've got somebody they could ring and you only live not very far away, then they might be willing to just let you come and collect it and take the problem off their hands. What I'm going to try and do is take a bit of video of me having a look in some of these shops just to see if there's anything. I find it's quite a good time of year. Everybody's focusing on Christmas shopping, and so there's stuff being brought in because people are trying to clear clutter in order to make their homes look nice, holiday friendly. And what they do is they just bung bags of stuff down at the charity shops. And then the team of sorters go out the back and they have to sort all this stuff out as well as make their shop look festive. They will put out a lot of stuff because then craft supplies is definitely going to be one of the things that they will put out because it is the time of year when people want to craft. So it's a good time. It feels like it's not but it is because people are focused elsewhere and most crafters have done their crafting for this festive period. So there will be a few bargains, I'm sure of it. And another time for bargain hunting is when the spring cleaning happens and end of January when everybody's had a bit of a turf out, or this, January, February, you can definitely often find a few when people start packing away things and starting to, they're home a bit more because it's not very nice. So they start sorting things out and dumping stuff down at these second-hand shops. That's another good time to go and have a little look and see if there's a bargain. And it's also the time that you want it because you're setting yourself up for the year ahead. So, yep, that's what I'm going to try and do. I've got this calling to go and have a bargain hunt. I can't resist. And so I'm going to see if there's any goodies that will help me with my journaling making for next year. And I will bring you along for the ride and show you what I find. So thank you very much for listening. And above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye-bye now.